if they don't get recalled, you're going to find people to primary these guys. That's what's going to happen.
And you touched on the lack of staff during the first Engler campaign, and I was part of that campaign. Can you touch on the effect of the grassroots groups that you guys set up when Engler went into various towns? And he stayed there, set up these small little grassroots that continued that campaign, and that was a major effort, but it helped transcend the race, at least in those local.
Well, we just cultivated people that wanted to be involved in it, that were shut out. I mean, precinct delegates. You signed to be a precinct delegate. Well, when we go in, we ask them to come and be involved. Some would, some wouldn't. But we work with the elected township officials. No one ever asked them to do anything. Well, we talked to the county commissioners. We talked to the clerk. We talked to the sheriff. In some counties, we hadn't had anybody. There were no elected Republicans, mostly in the UP. So we went to be cultivated the Democrats, and they came over to began to help. So, and then we have ongoing communication with them. And then for the years that I was there, when we go back and visit a community, these folks would be invited. They'd be asked. They were asked to help. They pitched in during the campaign. We communicated with them on a regular basis throughout the campaign. And I think collectively, everybody, we built something that was pretty good and pretty strong. And then we lost a lot of that. Sort of came undone, and Dick started to put it back together. It wasn't involved in a lot of the grassroots. So that's how we did it. It was just a lot of phone calls, a lot of work. And I mean, I remember one time Engler was in my wife's home county. He was in Nuevo County. We had what we call an event Bible. We put together every event to help people in the counties, all things that happen in every county and every community in the state on the days and the times. We had like 2 volumes of like this thick. So we knew in Nuevo County everything that would happen every day, whether it was a Lions Club, whether it was a women's club lunch or a dinner or a parade or a festival, or the Catholic Church met on Sundays every second or fourth Sunday, and they'd have donuts and coffee after, we know that. So we know we'd go in, we proactively scheduled the things we needed to do, and then we build around those the things that we wanted to do while we were there. And so when we were in Nuevo County, remember Engler called up, my wife was running a scheduling operation at the time, and said, Colleen, I'm done, is there anything else I can do? She says, well, there's the Democrat Lincoln Day, or the Democrat Jeff Jack dinner. He's all right, go over there. She says, I said, let me call him. They called him, said they'd love to have you. He said they invited Blanchard, he never returned the call. So Engler went over to the Jeff Jack dinner, they let him speak. And so that's simplistic, but that's how we really build it. Let me see, right here.
You mentioned earlier about being able to work with the Democrats, and you said that you understood each other well in the way you thought process. What is the thought process? Can you help me understand what they?
Well, they don't. It's sort of like a tornado. It's going around. No, but not so much the thought process, but we understand. They believed and they helped build the welfare state. So you got to understand that when you're, and they were defending what we were taking apart. And so you had to respect what they were defending, but they couldn't defend paying people to do nothing. They couldn't defend not solving property taxes. So you could you could sit down and have a conversation with them, and you could agree to disagree. But by being able to do that, then that enabled us to reach some of the more moderate members of their party and some of the more conservative members of their party who philosophically aligned with what we wanted to do. And so we were able to take that communication, and they said, well, look, we can talk to these folks, and it's safe to talk. Then it's okay for us to talk too. And then we knew we weren't going to win their votes, but it was a way that everybody on that side of the aisle knew we were willing to talk to anybody. And it gave us credibility when we went in. And also Engler had the old philosophy, and I think it's very well, is you never burn a bridge in politics. Never burn a bridge. Because today's enemy is tomorrow's ally. And he knew that by being in the Senate. There were some bills when he was Senate Majority Leader, he would be fighting tooth and nail against the Liberal caucus, and on something else, he'd be able to pull 3 or 4 of them over because they'd have common ground on something else. And it was that understanding, which this governor doesn't have, and we'll never comprehend that Engler brought that we haven't seen presidency again, because he knew that politics is flux, and he was very good. And the other thing he did, he said, never celebrate the announcement, celebrate the accomplishment. And you find today there's a lot of celebration when you announce you're going to do something, and it's forgotten about. Celebrate what you do once it's done, and that's what's lasting. And that's what we do. Yes, sir.
What are your thoughts on how the party reacted to Proposal 2?
I thought it was pathetic.
I have an interesting question. You talk about...
Because we believed it.
What's that?
We believed it. We didn't want to talk about it. Because we were afraid we were going to be politically correct. We didn't want to get beat up. We didn't want to be called racist. There's nothing racist about, about that. And listen to Ward Connerly, one of the most articulate men I've ever heard in public life, talk about it. Is that, you can't end racism by practicing racism. And I don't, and Dick, and I thought we had an awful, we were too timid. And it didn't need to be timid.
You discussed the vision that politicians should have. I guess the question I have for you is, can you name a politician, state, local, national, that you think has a vision and then actually can display it?
Okay, that's a good question. Because I've had an opportunity to travel a lot around the country, and I've had a chance to see a lot of politicians in action.
Here's my point.
I think the one guy. I think Newt Gingrich is one.
Okay.
I think that drove him out of office, and it's what's bringing him back into public life. I think that's someone who has a vision. I think Chuck Schumer has a vision. He's a Democrat, but he's got a vision. I think Elliott Spitzer has one. The governor of New York, former Attorney General. I think Rudy Giuliani has one. That I think is pretty articulate. Here in the state, I'm not sure.
I guess that was my point. As I'm thinking of this and vision, I don't see it. And
that's why it's so rare.
It's okay.
I mean, that's why it is so rare. I mean, that's why politics turns so many people off. I mean, because we're not, and I don't think we're practicing the Teddy Roosevelt model. Everyone's looking, term limits has got everyone looking to the next election. So everyone's timid about what they're going to do and how it's going to impact their next election. How they're going to go raise the money. You used to have before term limits, you'd have two people serving in the state house, in the same Senate district before term limits. They'd be there, they'd create a friendship, they'd create a trust, they'd create a working relationship. The senator was going to be there for another couple of terms. Now the senator's term limited out after they're in one term. They're both looking for the Senate. You think how often do you think they're going to count on each other to, they're maybe looking at maybe on a particular vote. So the loyalty's gone, friendship and bonds are gone. Term limits have, I think, been a disaster from that standpoint. And they've cut out any kind of institutional knowledge in the state about what's happened prior to some committee. And there's no intellectual curiosity in Lansing today. None.
Is it an integrity issue?
I think they're honest people. Maybe it's intellectual integrity, but I think they're honest people. I don't think there are a lot of crooks there.
No, I'm saying integrity about doing the right thing versus doing what's politically.
I think there's a temerity of wanting to do the right thing. I think they want to do it, but they're afraid. They're afraid to do it because they don't know. When I read the news stories of Don Gilmer, they use Don Gilmer as an example of what the tax site in 1982 when he was reelected, even though he had a bad history. There's no stories about the members who voted to cut the budget, who voted to cut welfare, close mental hospitals, reorganize the DNR, et cetera, and got a co-majority of the Republicans in 1982. Read those stories. And there's no one that has that history that can talk to these people about that. They're all gone. There's no one that can say, hey, don't worry about it. Go back and make your case. You're on the side of people. You're just listening to the shouters. A lot more people out there vote than the shouters. But they're afraid of the shouters. They come to Lansing and it's their little Washington.